Hey friends, tonight's story is a bit unusual and probably not what you had in mind. It's called What Caveman Life Was Really Like Before You Settle In. Feel free to like the video and subscribe, but only if you truly enjoy what I share here. And if you're listening right now, drop a comment to let me know where you're tuning in from and what time it is. I always love seeing who's joining us from around the world. Now, go ahead and dim the lights. Maybe switch on a fan for that soft background hum, and let yourself drift into tonight's strange little journey. You didn't just stumble into a great moment in history. No, you wandered into something quieter. You wake slowly, though not because you want to, but because the sun is climbing lazily over the horizon, casting long, pale streaks across a landscape that is entirely untouched and entirely indifferent to your presence. There are no birds to sing, at least not yet. Only the distant groan of some creature you don't recognize, and the occasional rustle of leaves as something, or perhaps nothing, passes nearby. You stretch, which is more of a cautious, measured movement because you remember yesterday's stumble over a jagged rock, and because every muscle aches in ways, weeks or perhaps forever. The air is crisp, almost shockingly so, and each inhalation reminds you that warmth, comfort, and soft beds are inventions of a far future you cannot imagine. Your eyes adjust slowly, peering over a landscape dotted with rough, uneven rocks and sparse patches of hardy grass. There is a faint mist clinging to the ground in slow, reluctant wisps, curling around the bases of trees that are gnarled and ancient, twisting skyward as if even they are waking reluctantly. The ground beneath you is uneven, more an accident of nature than a deliberate surface to walk upon. Your toes press against uneven stones, softened only slightly by the thin, scratchy layer of moss that grows where sunlight occasionally reaches. And there, not 10 steps away, lies the remains of a small fire from yesterday, still faintly smoldering, a stubborn reminder that warmth is both precious and temporary. You rise carefully, aware of the threat of predators, though at this early hour they are likely still retreating from the chill of night. A lion might be yawning in the distance, a wolf sniffing the edges of the forest, or perhaps some strange, forgotten creature you've never encountered before. You know instinctively that the first moments of the day are for observation, for gauging movement, for noticing the patterns that might make the difference between life and a very quick, unpleasant death. Your hands brush against rough bark as you steady yourself, fingers pressing into grooves that have been shaped over centuries by wind, rain, and time itself. There is a tactile comfort in the familiarity of texture, though it is cold, harsh, and unyielding. Around you, the rest of the tribe begins to stir, though not in unison. One caveman grunts as he shifts from a sleeping position on a patch of grass and moss, a crude blanket of animal skins still loosely draped over him. Another stretches and scratches at an itch that seems to have appeared overnight. A problem as old as time itself, solved only through patient fumbling and awkward contortions. Someone coughs gently, disturbing the quiet just enough to make you remember that sound travels differently here, that every small noise carries in ways the mind cannot predict. Because it is all part of learning, part of understanding the rhythms of survival. Breakfast does not yet exist, though you know the hunt will begin soon. But this moment, the long dawn, is for preparation, for cautious planning, for knowing your place in a world that is indifferent, vast, and slightly dangerous. The light grows slowly, painting the landscape with gentle gradients of gold and pale gray. And you feel the soft ache of muscles, the sharp awareness of danger, and the slow, creeping recognition that life in this time is fundamentally about patience. Not the patience of waiting for the next story or for tea. Bodily patience that insists you move carefully, observe carefully, and breathe carefully. There is a kind of quiet magic in this. Not the sort of magic with spells or fireballs, but the subtle, slow magic of being awake in a world that predates invention, language, and law. The mist curls around your ankles. The occasional bird finally awakens somewhere in the distance. And you notice the way shadows shift imperceptibly, how the jagged rocks seem to hold onto the light as it creeps across their edges. There is humor here too, though it is dry and unintentional. You stumble slightly, brush against a soft, muffled groan from another caveman who is attempting to stand as gracefully as you, but failing spectacularly. The day has barely begun, and yet the pattern of struggle and persistence has already asserted itself. And so the long dawn continues. Hours are not yet counted by clocks, but by the sun's slow journey, by the shifting of shadows, by the subtle increase in sound and movement all around. You feel a connection to the land, to the animals, and to your tribe. Though it is a connection forged not in words, but in observation, awareness, and the quiet acknowledgement that every small action matters. The sun climbs higher, the mist thins reluctantly, and the day is ready to unfold. You breathe in, steady yourself, and prepare to take the first deliberate steps into what will be a day filled with minor victories, frequent setbacks, and the slow, meditative work of simply surviving in a world that does not pause for comfort. By the time your attention turns to the first stirrings of hunger, you are fully awake, fully present, and fully aware that this long dawn, quiet, chilly, and oddly beautiful, is the foundation upon which the rest of your day will be built. And so, as you stand there, toes gripping the uneven ground, muscles stiff but ready, and eyes adjusting to a light that has been climbing steadily for hours, you begin to understand what it truly means to exist in this prehistoric time. Not with fanfare, not with grand gestures, but with the slow, unremarkable, yet utterly absorbing reality of being alive. The morning continues, though it has already claimed a few small victories over your dignity. You attempt to straighten your hair, which has taken on the delightful consistency of bird's nest meets haystack overnight. Each tug is a careful negotiation with the strands, a negotiation that the strands are winning. Somewhere nearby, a fellow caveman is engaged in a similar struggle, muttering under his breath about the injustice of hair that refuses to lie flat, while scratching at a particularly persistent tangle. You notice the soft irony that, despite the absence of mirrors, everyone still notices everyone else's hair, and perhaps silently judges it. You shuffle toward the remains of yesterday's fire, hoping to coax some embers back into life, because warmth is both precious and temporary, as you've already learned. Your first attempt produces little more than a faint wisp of smoke and a soft, disappointed sigh. The sparks leap reluctantly, as if mocking your clumsy hands, and you realize that fire, much like the morning itself, refuses to be rushed. You try again, rubbing sticks together, pressing flint against stone, your fingers raw and sensitive from yesterday's practice. There is humor here, though it is entirely unintentional. The caveman next to you has set his own hair on fire, and his panicked gestures send clouds of smoke in all directions, while the rest of the tribe watches, suppressing giggles in their throats. Mole couple, you are no ours. Tentes, Bini, Breakfast, or at least the idea of breakfast, is already a looming thought. You glance around, hoping for some easy success. Perhaps a few berries within reach, or a small animal caught unaware. The universe, however, prefers morning mishaps to cooperation. A berry bush seems promising until you step too close and discover it is actually a thicket of thorny vines, scratching your legs as if to remind you that nature has no mercy. A bird nearby flutters indignantly, scolding you in chirps that you can almost understand as laughter. Somewhere behind, another caveman trips over a fallen log, flailing arms wildly and landing in a puddle that was hiding in plain sight. The day has barely begun, and yet it has already delivered a small collection of minor humiliations. You move on to the hunt for more substantial nourishment, carrying a crude spear that seems almost comically short in your hands. Each step is a careful negotiation with the uneven ground, which seems determined to trip you at every opportunity. Your fellow tribe members offer a mixture of helpful advice, grunts, and entirely unhelpful gestures that occasionally send you veering dangerously close to rocks or puddles. One caveman, attempting to demonstrate bravery, decides to hop over a small boulder and promptly lands face first in a shallow stream, producing a splash and a sound that will echo in the memory of the tribe for hours or perhaps days. You take note of it all because this is how lessons are learned, though usually at someone else's expense. By mid-morning, it is clear that these mishaps are not going to stop, nor are they particularly uncommon. A simple task like gathering water from a nearby stream becomes an exercise in patience, coordination, and occasionally cursing softly under your breath. Stones slip beneath your feet, sending little cascades of water into your boots, and fish leap from the stream, sometimes landing unexpectedly close to your toes. The caveman next to you, carrying a small container made of hollowed-out bark, manages to drop half of it into the current, prompting a frustrated ground out by the babble of the water. There is an almost meditative quality to the repetition of mistakes, a rhythm that feels strangely familiar, even in the discomfort. Meanwhile, small animals take advantage of your fumbling. A curious fox watches silently from a distance, ears twitching, perhaps judging, perhaps planning. A rabbit scurries past a pair of cavemen, sending one tripping over a protruding root, arms flailing, while another attempts to catch it with a net fashioned from sticks and fibers, only to have the net collapse in a soft heap. These minor skirmishes with nature are repeated endlessly, and yet there is a gentle humor to it all. You begin to understand that morning mishaps are not failures so much as rituals of learning, of patience, and of quietly observing the world around you. Fire, as ever, refuses to cooperate. Attempting to roast a small portion of meat produces smoke in inconvenient directions. You cough, waving your hands and tripping over a stone in the process. And the caveman beside you bursts into a quiet, muffled laugh, smearing soot across his face without noticing. A small debate arises over whose turn it is to tend the fire, which rapidly escalates into grunts, gesturing, and the occasional accidental slap from a swinging arm. These are not quarrels that will leave long-term scars, but they punctuate the morning with small bursts of drama cannot be ignored. By late morning, you are slightly bedraggled, hair wild, hands sore, and clothes slightly askew from constant adjustments. Yet, There is a quiet satisfaction in having survived these minor trials, in having observed the world, participated in it clumsily, and still standing upright at the center of it. The sun has climbed higher, shadows shortened, and the mist has lifted completely, revealing a landscape of rugged beauty punctuated by stones, streams, and vegetation that has somehow learned to thrive despite the ineptitude of its human observers. The long dawn is behind you, and the morning mishaps, though continuous, have begun to shape your rhythm, teaching you patience, endurance, and the value of quiet observation amidst chaos. And so the morning continues, gently reminding you that life, even in its smallest moments, is a series of small errors, awkward recoveries, and fleeting triumphs. You adjust your animal skins, rub soot off your face, and prepare to take on the next challenge, which will undoubtedly arrive sooner than expected. You carry with you the knowledge that mishaps are not to be feared, but rather observed, endured, and occasionally laughed at, softly, quietly, so that the rhythm of the tribe and the calm of the landscape remain intact. Each stumble, each smoke-filled cough, each soaked foot is a thread in the fabric of life here. You realize that surviving the morning mishaps is an achievement in itself, worthy of recognition, though unspoken and often overlooked. The hunt begins, though it is not the cinematic chase of movies, not the swift and heroic pursuit of prey with triumphant music playing in your head. No, it is slower, messier, and far more repetitive. You and your fellow cavemen move cautiously through uneven terrain, each step a negotiation with roots, stones, and patches of mud that seem designed to test patience rather than skill. Your spear feels heavier than usual, the tip slightly dull from yesterday's practice, and every rustle in the underbrush is a reminder that the world is alive and indifferent to your intentions. Your eyes scan the distance for signs of movement. Perhaps a small mammal, perhaps a grazing deer, perhaps something larger, though those are rare this early in the day. The landscape stretches out, a patchwork of grass, low shrubs, and occasional clusters of trees whose leaves sway gently in the wind. The hunt is slow because speed is dangerous. A misstep could alert the prey or leave you vulnerable to a predator. A lone wolf might be observing, hidden in shadow, waiting to see which creature will make the first mistake. You move carefully, aware of every sound, every scent, every subtle change in the rhythm of the forest. You spot something, a large, shaggy mammoth at the edge of a clearing. It is enormous, a moving mountain of brown fur and curving tusks, grazing, unaware of your presence. Your heart quickens, though quietly, because loud noises would be disastrous. You exchange subtle glances with your companions, each one silently agreeing on a plan that is more hopeful than precise. Spears are raised, sticks positioned, but the approach is careful, slow, and measured. Every step is calculated, yet the weight of anticipation presses gently against your chest, reminding you that success here is uncertain and effort may outweigh reward. A false step sends a small pebble skittering across the ground. You freeze instantly, watching the mammoth raise its head, nostrils flaring, ears twitching. Relief floods as it settles again into grazing, though the lesson is clear. Precision matters, timing matters, and luck is a quiet, fickle companion. Your hands tighten around the spear, knuckles whitening, and you remind yourself that the hunt is as much about observation and endurance as it is about raw strength. Each caveman has his role. One distracts, one approaches, one observes, and failure in coordination could turn a promising hunt into a long, fruitless day. Meanwhile, minor mishaps continue, softly punctuating the tension. One caveman trips over a low root and lands in a shallow puddle, sending a tiny spray of water into the air. Another coughs too loudly, sending a cloud of dust toward the mammoth. The creature startles, steps away, and grazes a little farther from your reach. These minor errors are both frustrating and quietly humorous. There is no shame, only the slow accumulation of experience, the patient understanding that every small mistake is a lesson etched into memory, muscle soreness, and observation. You attempt to close the distance. Each step is deliberate. The spear feels awkward, heavy, and slightly wet from morning dew. You remember lessons learned yesterday. Adjust your grip, balance carefully, and inch forward. The mammoth is aware now, head occasionally lifting to scan the surroundings, ears flicking, tusks catching the light. You know the hunt will take time. Key, it is not a matter of charging, of moving with intention, and of keeping a calm mind while every instinct screams both fear and excitement. At some point, berries and smaller animals distract you. A rabbit scurries past, and your first impulse is to chase, though you know the mammoth is the prize. Yet the smaller creatures provide both practice and amusement. You lunge awkwardly, miss spectacularly, and stumble, prompting a quiet chuckle from the caveman next to you. The morning continues in this fashion. Small bursts of action, long stretches of quiet observation, punctuated by minor mishaps that test patience, balance, and focus. Even in the simplicity of hunting, there is complexity, subtlety, and the occasional lesson in humility. Hours pass slowly. The mammoth eventually moves farther away, perhaps heading toward water or denser part of the forest. The hunt may end without success today, or success may come unexpectedly. Regardless, the morning has been full of learning, observation, and the slow, careful practice of skills that will be essential tomorrow and the day after. There is satisfaction in participation, even if victory is not yet achieved. Each caveman understands that persistence is as valuable as speed, that patience is as important as strength, and that laughter, even quiet and brief, eases the tension of survival. As the hunt winds down, whether successful or not, there is a sense of rhythm to these early hours. The long dawn has ended, the morning mishaps are behind you, and now the breakfast hunt has taught its lessons. Not all will be remembered consciously, yet each misstep, each careful adjustment, each observation of the mammoth, the smaller creatures, and the landscape embeds itself in memory. The tribe moves back toward the central area, muscles tired but alert, senses sharpened, and a subtle, shared understanding forming that life here is slow, deliberate, and remarkably demanding, even in its simplest tasks. The breakfast hunt, as uneventful as it may seem to an observer from a future with convenience stores and alarm clocks, is profoundly instructive. Every pebble avoided, every misstep corrected, every strategy quietly adjusted contributes to the fabric of survival. You feel the quiet satisfaction of endurance, the gentle humor in mistakes, and the slow, meditative awareness that this is what it means to be alive in the Stone Age. And as you glance back toward the clearing, now empty save for traces of the mammoth's passage, you realize that the hunt, like life itself, is less about immediate reward, observing and moving carefully through a world that refuses to pause. After the morning's hunt, whether triumphant or frustratingly fruitless, your attention shifts to tools. Stone axes, wooden spears, and rudimentary knives lie scattered around the clearing, each a combination of necessity, trial, and error. You pick one up, feeling its weight, noting the awkward balance between handle and tip, between intention and the blunt reality of its performance. Each tool is an extension of your body, yet also stubbornly independent, resisting mastery at every turn. The first lesson is patience, followed closely by repetition, with a sprinkling of gentle embarrassment whenever a blade slips or a point breaks unexpectedly. You attempt to sharpen a spear, rubbing flint against stone in a careful, repetitive motion that requires just enough pressure to create friction, but not so much as to shatter the fragile tip. Sparks fly occasionally, almost in mockery, landing on your hands or scattering into the soft moss below. One of your companions, already a few steps ahead, demonstrates his own technique, which looks deceptively simple, but is actually a careful negotiation of angles, pressure, and timing. You mimic him, only to find the stone splitting unevenly, jagged edges forming that threaten to puncture your fingers more than the intended target. A soft groan escapes, barely audible as the lesson of humility presses in. Tools fail in subtle ways that teach louder lessons than outright disaster. A club, seemingly sturdy, bends slightly on impact, causing the user to stumble. A knife carefully shaped chips just as a small piece of meat is sliced. You observe quietly, knowing that the errors are as instructive as any triumphant strike. There is humor in it, though entirely unintentional. One caveman manages to break the handle of his spear while gesturing wildly, prompting a quiet chorus of grunts, suppressed chuckles from the rest of the tribe. These moments, slow and seemingly mundane, building the knowledge that will carry forward into later hunts, longer days, and more complex survival layers. Riad, lai are continent. I not o we so I we you be we got if voice. Stone is both your ally and your adversary. You strike carefully, learning how different textures, weights, and angles produce varying results. A flake too thin will snap. A flake too thick will refuse to cut. You handle these shards with cautious respect, aware that one misjudged movement can puncture skin, tear a garment, or startle a fellow tribe member. The subtle tension of this work keeps the mind alert while the body labors slowly, rhythmically, and deliberately, almost meditative in its repetition. Wood, by contrast, offers both frustration and amusement. Attempting to carve a handle or shape a spear can result in sudden splinters, awkwardly balanced tools, or cracked shafts that laugh at your efforts. One caveman, attempting to craft a particularly fine spear, ends up with a curved, wobbling instrument that barely resembles the original intention. He holds it aloft proudly anyway, while the rest of the tribe watches, smothering laughter and offering exaggerated nods of approval. Even failure, here, is not shameful, but instructive, a reminder that mastery requires time, patience, and the occasional soft chuckle at the absurdity of human ambition. As you move from tool to tool, adjusting, observing, and experimenting, a rhythm forms. Hands smear with dust. Small cuts remind you of limits, and the sun climbs higher, casting sharp shadows over the clearing. Each day, this exercise in tool maintenance and creation sharpens more than stone. It hones awareness, focus, and coordination. You notice subtle improvements, a cleaner cut here, a steadier grip there, and take quiet satisfaction in them. The work is slow, deliberate, and deeply absorbing, with occasional interruptions in the form of minor mishaps that punctuate the day with gentle humor. By midday, the tools are in varying states of readiness. Some are sharp, some are still crude, and some have been irreparably broken. It is an imperfect but functional collection, the result of repeated trial, observation, and adaptation. The tribe takes stock, quietly comparing progress without overt commentary. There is a soft, unspoken agreement that success is measured not in perfection, but in usable improvement, in lessons learned, and in the subtle accumulation of skill that will ripple outward to all aspects of daily life, from hunting to building to minor acts of survival. Even in the quiet frustrations of tool-making, there is subtle humor. Fingers smudge with dust and sap. Stone flakes scatter unpredictably, and a misaligned swing can send a piece of flint bouncing harmlessly across the clearing. One caveman frowns dramatically at a broken spear, only to trip over his own foot in the next step. These minor errors, repeated endlessly, create a gentle rhythm of learning and observation. A slow, soothing cadence that underlies the otherwise chaotic energy of survival. The work is never glamorous, never fast, but profoundly important. As the sun rises higher and the day stretches forward, the subtle satisfaction of progress becomes clear. Each tool is a testament to patience, observation, and incremental skill. Even failures are embraced as lessons, quietly noted for future reference. The process is slow, meticulous, and almost meditative, teaching that survival depends as much on careful preparation and steady hands as it does on raw strength or heroic action. By the time you step back, surveying the collection of tools, you recognize that the small, repetitive labors and minor frustrations have shaped you, prepared you, and gently molded your ability to navigate a world that is equal parts indifferent and demanding. You are Lowell with you were re to you were you the And so, as midday approaches and the shadows shift slightly, you leave the tools where they lie, knowing that tomorrow will require them again. The day's labors, though slow and punctuated by minor mishaps, have left you wiser, steadier, and more attuned to the delicate art of interacting with the natural world. Two-time troubles, in their quiet, meticulous way, have imparted patience, precision, and the gentle humor of repeated trial. Lessons as vital as any hunt, any meal, or any sleep that will follow in the long, unhurried rhythm of caveman life. With tools temporarily set aside, attention naturally drifts to clothing, or rather, the improvised coverings that pass for clothing in this prehistoric world. Animal skins, roughly tanned and stitched together with thin strips of sinew, hang awkwardly from shoulders, hips, and waists, offering warmth and protection, but little in the way of comfort or elegance. You tug at the edges, adjusting folds, and trying not to rip a seam that has survived several previous mornings only by a thread. There is humor here, though quiet, as each movement involves delicate negotiations with a material that refuses to behave as intended. Every caveman seems to encounter their own wardrobe challenges. One struggles with a skin that is far too large, tripping over the dangling edges as he attempts to walk toward the clearing. Another wrestles with a cloak that has shrunk overnight for reasons mysterious and magical, leaving him clutching it desperately in a futile attempt to cover legs and torso simultaneously. Your own clothing emits occasional rustles, squeaks, or unintended flaps, reminding you with each step that fashion in this era is defined entirely by survival rather than taste. The struggle is constant and yet quietly absorbing, shaping both patience and observation. Fastenings are a particular source of frustration. Bone toggles and rough strips of sinew are intended to hold skins together, but often fail at the most inconvenient moments. A loose knot unravels just as you bend to retrieve a dropped tool, producing a soft, almost comical cascade of material to the ground. Fingers, still raw from tool-making, fumble awkwardly with the stubborn sinew, reminding you that precision is not optional in this era. One caveman sighs dramatically and attempts to tie a knot behind his back, only to end up entangled, wriggling with quiet exasperation. Observing this, you quietly note the subtle lesson that clothing, like tools, demands patience, observation, and repeated practice. Movement in these primitive garments is an exercise in strategy and improvisation. Sitting, standing, bending, even walking carefully across uneven terrain requires constant awareness of shifting folds and sliding edges. You learn quickly that a simple act like crossing a stream can become a small negotiation between balance, clothing, and the risk of exposure or mishap. There is laughter, soft, muffled, and shared among the tribe at minor slips, catches, or flaps, but it is always gentle, never cruel, and serves as a quiet reminder of the shared challenges that define this time. Weather complicates matters further. Morning dew leaves animal skins damp and clinging. Wind catches loose edges and whips them unpredictably. And sun warmth can make heavier layers feel suddenly oppressive. Each caveman adapts in subtle ways, rolling sleeves, adjusting belts, tugging edges over hips, or shifting weight from foot to compensate for a clumsy hem or flap. These adaptations are small, incremental, often unnoticed in the grand scheme, yet vital for comfort, mobility, and even survival. There is a rhythm to these adjustments, a slow, meditative pattern that unfolds naturally as you and your companions move through the landscape. Practicality often clashes with instinct. You notice, for instance, that a particularly large pelt would offer excellent coverage, if only it were not impossibly heavy. Another skin is ideal in size, but scratches relentlessly, reminding you that material choice is a compromise, a negotiation between protection and irritation. Observing your fellow tribe members, you begin to learn their subtle strategies, folding edges under arms, tucking tails behind belts, and twisting irregular pieces, collars, or hoods. These improvised solutions, while imperfect, demonstrate ingenuity, patience, and the occasional quiet humor of trial and errors, needles, or mirrors. Minor accidents continue to punctuate the morning. A skin catches on a low branch, producing a soft rip. A cloak slips over a shoulder at an inopportune moment, revealing a bare limb. A fur hood slides down to obscure vision, just as a small creature scurries past. Each mishap is observed, processed, and learned from, embedding lessons in balance, adjustment, and caution. Humor is subtle but present, a gentle undercurrent that eases tension, strengthens bonds, and transforms what might otherwise be frustrating into a quiet, shared amusement. By mid-morning, as the sun climbs higher and the tribe becomes more accustomed to the awkwardness of their garments, a pattern emerges. Each caveman finds a combination of folds, knots, and adjustments that works well enough for movement, work, and survival. Imperfections remain, of course. Some skins are still slightly loose, some edges still scratch, but the rhythm of adaptation has taken hold. Clothing in this prehistoric time is not about elegance, status, or aesthetics. It is about observation, improvisation, and a delicate balance between protection, mobility, and endurance. And so, as you and your companions continue through the day, the minor frustrations and comical adjustments of morning clothing teach quiet lessons in patience, adaptability, and self-awareness. Each flap of fur, each shifting toggle, each soft rustle of a heavy pelt contributes to an understanding that survival is as much about observation and subtlety as it is about raw strength or daring action. You move deliberately, adjust continuously, and, despite the occasional slip or scrape, navigate the world with a steady, measured attention to detail. Clothing chaos in its slow, unhurried way has become another ritual of the day, shaping skill, patience, and even quiet amusement, small but essential threads in the fabric of caveman life. After the morning's minor victories with clothing and tools, attention naturally turns to shelter, or more accurately, the attempt to create something vaguely resembling a home in a world that has no architects. no blueprints, and absolutely no interest in accommodating human comfort. Sticks, branches, and leaves lie scattered across the ground, seemingly placed by the whims of nature rather than any helpful design. You pick one up, feel its weight, and immediately notice that it is either too heavy, too thin, or slightly curved in a way that seems deliberately antagonistic. The first step is assembly, though calling it construction might be generous. You and your companions try various configurations, leaning branches together, propping others against rocks, and securing some with strips of sinew. Each attempt is met with subtle rebellion from the materials themselves. Sticks slide, leaves flutter away, and knots unravel with quiet, persistent determination. One caveman, attempting to hold a structure upright, finds himself pinned awkwardly as a large branch tips just enough to nudge him onto the ground. The scene is simultaneously frustrating and quietly humorous, a gentle reminder that patience is required in all things. Ground selection is equally challenging. You notice that the softest patches of moss are often uneven, slippery, or full of hidden stones. The driest ground might be littered with twigs that poke sharply through your primitive bedding. Each choice involves trade-offs, compromise, and the slow accumulation of knowledge about what works and what does not. The tribe moves slowly, examining, testing, and readjusting positions with quiet murmurs and occasional grunts of disapproval, all of which contributes to a rhythm that feels oddly soothing amidst the chaos. Weather considerations cannot be ignored. Sunlight shifts throughout the day, and even a light drizzle can quickly render a structure useless. You drape leaves with care, only to have them slide off with a soft, inexorable finality. Branches, no matter how carefully positioned, bend and sway, reminding you that nature is indifferent to human effort. Minor setbacks are constant. A small collapse here, a puddle forming there, and the persistent, quiet challenge of maintaining any sense of order in a world designed for survival rather than convenience. Teamwork is essential, though it rarely proceeds without gentle chaos. One caveman insists that a particularly heavy branch must form the center of the shelter, while another quietly disagrees, producing a tangle of leaves and vines in protest. Negotiation is done with gestures, grunts, and subtle eye contact, punctuated occasionally by a softly suppressed laugh at the absurdity of holding large sticks upright while balancing on uneven ground. These negotiations are slow, sometimes frustrating, but ultimately productive, teaching that collaboration, observation, and patience are as essential to survival as physical strength. Construction mishaps continue throughout the morning. A branch tips unexpectedly, knocking a small pile of leaves into the dirt. Another branch slips just as it is secured, producing a soft crash and prompting a minor scramble to prevent a total collapse. One caveman, frustrated, taps the structure repeatedly with a small stone, as if the stubborn wood would magically obey. You observe quietly, learning from the repeated failures, understanding that progress is measured not by perfection but by small improvements, clever adjustments, and the gentle accumulation of experience over time. By midday, the shelter begins to resemble something vaguely functional. It is imperfect, with gaps in the walls, uneven roofing, and a general sense of precariousness. But it offers the beginnings of protection from sun, rain, and wind. The tribe steps back to admire, or perhaps simply to assess, the work, recognizing that survival often depends more on ingenuity and persistence than on elegance. Even in failure, there is quiet satisfaction, a recognition that each effort, each minor adjustment, contributes to a slow, cumulative mastery of the environment. The shelter teaches subtle lessons beyond physical protection. You learn about balance, leverage, and the importance of observation. Each branch, each leaf, each tie of sinew imparts knowledge about structural stability, the behavior of materials, and the necessity of planning ahead. Humor persists in small doses. A poorly tied knot may unravel at the worst possible moment. A branch may tip just as someone steps inside, producing gentle grunts and stifled laughter. These moments, minor though they are, reinforce the rhythm of observation, patience, and quiet problem-solving that defines caveman life. As the sun climbs higher, casting long shadows over your partially constructed dwelling, you recognize that shelter is not merely a physical necessity, but a training ground for the mind, body, and attention. The repeated failures, minor frustrations, and occasional comic mishaps all serve to shape skills that will be vital for hunting, tool-making, and surviving the unpredictable world outside. In this slow, deliberate process, patience and persistence are rewarded, teaching lessons that cannot be learned elsewhere, and embedding the gentle humor of minor chaos deep into memory. And so, as midday approaches and the tribe settles momentarily to rest or observe the partially completed shelter, there is a quiet sense of accomplishment. The struggle, though ongoing, has produced progress. Each branch uprighted, each leaf secured, each minor collapse survived, contributes to the subtle understanding that survival depends on observation, adaptability, and patience. Shelter struggles, in their slow, methodical, and occasionally humorous way, have become another ritual of the day, shaping endurance, skill, and the gentle rhythm of life in the prehistoric world. After the modest victories and gentle frustrations of clothing and shelter, attention inevitably turns to water. Water which seems simple in theory, is anything but in practice. Streams, ponds, and small pools, the landscape, but each carries its own peculiar challenges. Rocks are slippery, mud clings stubbornly to boots and bare feet. And currents, however small, remind you that nature follows no plan suited to human convenience. Every step toward water is measured, deliberate, and occasionally punctuated by quiet exclamations of frustration when footing betrays you. You approach a stream, noticing the gentle ripple of the water as it winds around stones and small clusters of reeds. The surface appears calm, almost inviting, but you know better. Submerged rocks are slick, mossy, and deceptive. Currents shift subtly, and small pools hide mud deep enough to swallow a foot in a slow, humiliating embrace. One caveman steps too quickly, slips slightly, and almost tumbles, producing a soft grunt and a ripple of suppressed laughter from nearby companions. The water is essential, yet negotiating it is an exercise in patience, balance, and careful observation. Buckets, hollowed bark, containers, and crude pottery are employed to collect the water, each presenting its own minor frustrations. A container might crack under the pressure of weight, leak subtly from an unnoticed hole, or tip when the current nudges it. Fingers, still raw from tool-making and adjusting clothing, fumble clumsily with slippery surfaces, and each misstep creates soft splashes, small waves, and occasional embarrassment. A caveman drops his container entirely, sending a cascade of water into the stream and prompting quiet sighs of recognition. Water, though abundant, is a task that demands humility and attention. Observing nature during water collection is an unintentional lesson in patience. Fish dart beneath the surface, occasionally brushing against ankles or toes, creating small shocks of surprise and mild alarm. Tiny insects hover lazily above the surface, and reeds sway unpredictably in the soft current. Every movement must be considered. A sudden lunge for a dropped container can disrupt balance, while a misplaced step can leave boots or feet mired in slick mud. Water collection, simple in theory, unfolds as a slow, deliberate dance, requiring awareness, coordination, and occasional quiet laughter at the missteps of both self and companions. Predatory caution is never far from your mind. Predators, though unlikely at this hour, may lurk nearby, drawn to the sound, scent, or movement around water. Even the most mundane task demands subtle observation and measured motion. You glance at shadows along the banks, notice unusual ripples in the water, and remind yourself that a misstep here could invite attention from creatures whose appetites are sharper than your own wit. Each careful motion is a negotiation between necessity, a gentle reminder that survival is never as simple as filling a container. Water, however, provides quiet rewards beyond hydration. The reflective surface offers small moments of amusement, subtle distraction, and gentle observation. You notice your own reflection, distorted and wavering, reminding you that beauty, or at least appearance, is irrelevant here. A companion splashes gently to test depth. Another carefully examines the smoothness of a stone to use as a tool. Even in such mundane acts, small lessons emerge: patience, awareness, and the importance of subtle adjustments that prevent minor failures from becoming major frustrations. The process is slow. Water is not rushed. Each container is filled, balanced, and transported with care. You carry it back to camp, steadying each step to avoid spills. Observing the shifting path, the hidden rocks, and the uneven earth, the rhythm becomes almost meditative. Bend, scoop, lift, balance, walk, repeat. Each repetition reinforces not just physical skill, but patience, focus, and quiet endurance. Humor persists quietly. A sudden slip, a splash, a dripping trail across the clearing. Each produces soft chuckles, murmurs of recognition, and shared understanding that water is both vital and perpetually mischievous. By mid-morning, the task is complete, though imperfect. Some water may have spilled, some containers cracked, some feet remain wet, but the essential goal is achieved. Hydration, observation, and the gentle satisfaction of completing a task through persistence all merge. The tribe gathers around, quietly appreciating the effort, while acknowledging, without words, the lessons learned from minor mishaps, careful observation, and the unpredictable temperament of moving water. And so, water collection, while slow, deliberate, and punctuated by minor mishaps, teaches subtle skills essential for survival. Balance, patience, attention to detail, and the ability to laugh quietly at mistakes all become embedded in memory. The task is never glamorous, never quick, but profoundly instructive, shaping not only survival skills, but the rhythm, awareness, and gentle humor that permeates daily life. Water woes, in their slow, methodical way, have become another ritual of the day, grounding the tribe in the reality of living carefully, observing attentively, and enduring patiently in a world that is equal parts generous and indifferent. No matter how carefully you tend to clothing, tools, shelter, or water, predators remain an ever-present concern. Their presence is rarely dramatic in the way stories might suggest. There is no cinematic growl, no triumphant leap from shadow. Instead, their threat is subtle, persistent, and quietly intimidating. A rustle in the underbrush, a flicker of movement on the horizon, a sudden silence among smaller creatures. These serve as gentle reminders that you are never truly alone in the wilderness. You notice shadows shifting among trees, the occasional glint of eyes in distant foliage. Each observation triggers a mix of caution and curiosity. One caveman freezes mid-step, hand raised in a silent warning, as a small predator, a fox, a wildcat, perhaps even a distant wolf, slips past unseen. There is no panic, only measured alertness. A quiet acknowledgement that speed and strength matter less than patience, observation, and knowing when to move and when to remain still. Humor persists softly. A misjudged gesture might send one caveman stumbling over roots or startling a companion, producing a quiet, shared chuckle at the absurdity of human nervousness. Hunting predators is not undertaken lightly. You and your companions do not charge blindly into danger, nor do you rely on weapons that are perfectly suited for the task. Spears are crude, traps are experimental, and each attempt to deter or distract a predator carries the risk of failure. A misstep might send a stone tumbling down a slope, alerting the creature to your presence, while another poorly aimed swing of a spear might disturb the environment more than it intimidates the threat. Each movement must be deliberate, calculated, and quietly coordinated with fellow tribe members. Smaller predators present subtle challenges. A raccoon or fox might attempt to steal a portion of food or scavenge from a hunting area. Their movements are swift, silent, and occasionally mischievous. One caveman attempts to shoo a raccoon away, only to find the creature retreats just far enough to tease him, pausing as if to study his reaction before darting off. These interactions, though minor, teach lessons in observation, timing, and restraint. Even small successes or failures are quietly instructive, shaping awareness and reflexes in ways that are both practical and amusing. Larger predators require constant vigilance. A distant shadow of a wolf pack or the rumble of a bear's presence in the mountains prompts careful planning. Paths are adjusted, hunting activities reconsidered, and every sound in the forest is noted and catalogued in memory. One caveman notices a slight crunch of leaves, halts mid-step, and signals the rest with a subtle hand gesture. Movement becomes a careful negotiation with terrain, prey, and predator alike, each decision deliberate and measured. The rhythm of caution, combined with the occasional quiet humor of minor blunders, shapes the day into a slow, reflective practice of survival. Predator problems are not solely external. Fear itself can produce minor mishaps, missteps, or unexpected collisions. One caveman jumps at a falling branch, sending a spray of leaves into another's face, resulting in a muffled laugh and a few whispered exclamations of surprise. These moments, though small, serve as a gentle reminder that caution is essential. But so is the ability to recover gracefully from minor chaos. Humor and observation intertwine, reinforcing skills necessary for enduring both environment and predator. By mid-morning, subtle strategies are forming. Paths are chosen to avoid known predator routes. Lookout points are established, and each caveman has internalized cues that indicate potential danger. The lesson is clear. Survival depends as much on awareness and quiet observation as it does on strength, weapons, or luck. Even a minor misstep might alert a predator, yet repeated observation and gentle patience gradually improve the tribe's ability to move safely. Mistakes are learning opportunities, often softened by humor, and the day's activities become a slow, deliberate practice in vigilance. Even encounters that do not escalate into danger leave an impression. A wolf heard at a distance, a rustle that turns out to be nothing. A shadow of a large feline glimpsed between trees contribute to awareness, teaching subtle cues and the rhythm of caution. Each experience, even uneventful, builds reflexes, observation, and the quiet understanding that survival is a continuous process of attention, adaptation, and gentle humility before forces larger than oneself. And so predator problems, though never dramatically resolved, shape the day and the tribe in profound ways. Each alert, each careful step, each quiet observation embeds lessons in patience, caution, and resilience. Even humor persists, subtle and soft in the minor blunders, startled reactions, and occasional slips of misjudged timing. The slow rhythm of vigilance, punctuated by observation and gentle laughter, becomes part of the natural cadence of life. Predators, real or imagined, remind the tribe that survival is a careful balance, patience, and adaptation, and that, even in fear, there is room for quiet amusement and subtle triumph. Once predators are accounted for and the immediate necessities of shelter and water are managed, the tribe turns its attention to foraging. Foraging, unlike hunting, is quieter, slower, and often less dramatic, yet it demands careful observation, patience, and a subtle awareness of nature's unpredictable generosity. Berries, nuts, roots, and edible leaves are all potential sources of sustenance, but each carries its own hidden challenges and occasional surprises. One misstep could result in a sour taste, a mildly irritating rash, or even the discovery of something entirely inedible. You move slowly through the underbrush, scanning each patch of ground and every low-hanging branch for signs of edible plants. One caveman stoops to examine a cluster of berries, sniffing carefully and nudging them with a finger. Another reaches for a root, only to find it tangled among rocks and stubbornly resisting extraction. Each interaction, seemingly mundane, is rich with small lessons. Texture, color, smell, and even subtle movements of leaves all contribute to determining what is safe to eat. Observation is the key, and mistakes, though minor, provide essential information for the future. Foraging teaches patience in unexpected ways. A patch of berries may be plentiful, but thorns, uneven ground, and small insects make harvesting a slow, deliberate activity. One caveman, frustrated by a particularly thorny bush, ends up with scratches along his forearm, prompting quiet laughter and sympathetic groans from companions. These minor mishaps, while inconvenient, are instructive. They refine coordination, improve judgment, and reinforce the subtle rhythm required to navigate a world where even something as simple as gathering food demands attention, care, and endurance. Coordination among tribe members is subtle but important. While one collects berries, another searches for roots or edible leaves, and a third keeps watch for predators or wandering animals. Communication is mostly nonverbal, a series of gestures, glances, and soft grunts. This coordination, though slow and deliberate, ensures efficiency and safety. Occasionally, a humorous collision occurs. A reaching hand startles another forager. A dropped root rolls unpredictably, or a berry is accidentally squished underfoot. Rather than causing frustration, add a gentle levity to the activity, blending practicality with the quiet humor of trial and error. Foraging also teaches observation beyond the obvious. Leaves may indicate ripeness, soil may hint at hidden roots, and subtle insect activity can reveal what is safe to consume. Each discovery is small but significant, a quiet triumph in understanding the natural world. One caveman points out a particular plant, its bright berries, safe and nourishing, while another demonstrates the correct method to remove it without tearing the surrounding foliage. These lessons, slow and deliberate, emphasize that survival is as much about knowledge as it is about physical effort. Mishaps are inevitable, and each one contributes to learning. A misidentified leaf might produce a mildly unpleasant taste. A slippery patch of mud might send a forager stumbling, and a swarm of small insects may drive the group to adjust positions. Each challenge is minor, yet cumulatively they build skills, patience, and resilience. Humor is subtle but present. A berry accidentally squished on a nose, a root snapping with an exaggerated crack, a small exclamation at the unexpected softness of soil. These small, gentle amusements ease tension and enhance camaraderie, while reinforcing attention to detail. By mid-morning, the collected food begins to accumulate. Berries, roots, and leaves are gathered in careful piles, with the tribe quietly assessing what is suitable for immediate consumption and what might be stored. The slow rhythm of movement, the subtle lessons embedded in minor mishaps, and the quiet observation of natural cues all contribute to a cumulative understanding that foraging, though unglamorous, is essential. Even small mistakes are valuable. They teach caution, refine technique, and reinforce the importance of observation, patience, and gentle humor in daily life. The foraging process is also meditative. The repetition of bending, picking, observing, and carrying embeds a rhythm that soothes the mind while sharpening the senses. Attention to detail becomes automatic, yet the mind remains engaged, alert to subtle shifts in the environment. Every small step, a careful placement of a foot, a gentle tug at a berry, a soft adjustment of clothing to avoid snagging, reinforces the slow, deliberate pace required for survival. Humor, subtle and soft, continues to punctuate the day. A stumble, a squished berry, a startled glance at a harmless animal. And so, by late morning, foraging follies have imparted lessons in patience, observation, coordination, and subtle humor. Each action, from carefully plucking berries to navigating uneven terrain, shapes both skill and understanding. Even when mishaps occur, they are absorbed as gentle instruction, building resilience, adaptability, and quiet enjoyment in small successes. The tribe, quietly content with their accumulated food and the subtle victories of the morning, moves forward with a rhythm of life shaped by observation, patience, and gentle, enduring humor. A slow, steady preparation for the challenges still to come in a world never static and always quietly, always to end. Khaled, where I bini in we to see you, we say ki we gai you ko we ku you. You to you peace stay it hit the deeds fly egg of the spit moved boys. After hours of careful observation, slow hunting, and patient foraging, the tribe finally gathers to consume the fruits of their labor. The midday meal is rarely glamorous. There are no neatly plated dishes, no delicate arrangement of ingredients. Instead, there is a mixture of recently collected berries, roots, small animals, and perhaps remnants of a partially successful hunt. Each item is handled carefully, measured for sustenance, and consumed with the awareness that every bite is both nourishment and a lesson in patience, preparation, and cautious enjoyment. The process begins slowly, with everyone selecting small portions to taste, examine, and share. Some bites are unexpectedly sour, others disappointingly tough, and still others bring quiet satisfaction. One caveman bites into a particularly fibrous root and struggles to chew it, producing a muffled groan that prompts a few soft chuckles from nearby companions. Humor, subtle and gentle, is an ever-present companion in these meals. Mishaps, while minor, punctuate the slow rhythm of consumption, teaching patience and careful attention to what is safe, nourishing, or simply palatable. Eating itself is a challenge. Animal skins double as makeshift plates, flat stones as cutting surfaces, and crude tools as utensils. One misjudged swipe of a knife sends a piece of food skittering across the ground, prompting a quiet scramble and suppressed laughter. Another caveman accidentally spills a handful of berries, staining the moss beneath and earning a gentle, teasing nudge from a companion. These small incidents, while inconvenient, are embedded with lessons about care, coordination, and subtle adaptation. Even the most mundane tasks provide opportunities to refine skill, patience, and awareness. Sharing is essential, though never entirely straightforward. Portions are distributed slowly, often negotiated with soft gestures, quiet grunts, or unspoken agreements. The tribe moves deliberately, careful not to upset fragile arrangements of food. Minor disagreements arise. A berry intended for one is accidentally taken by another, or a piece of root is claimed prematurely. Yet these are resolved calmly, usually accompanied by soft laughter or eye rolls, emphasizing the gentle rhythm and mutual patience that defines life in this era. The meal is also a subtle opportunity to observe companions' eating habits, techniques for handling difficult foods, and reactions to taste provide lessons in method and caution. One caveman expertly peels a tough root, while another carefully examines berries for ripeness, highlighting skills that are quietly shared and slowly internalized. Observation in these moments becomes as important as eating itself. The subtle interplay of learning, humor, and patient instruction transforms the ordinary act of consuming food into a slow, deliberate exercise in survival skill and social cohesion. Mishaps abound, quietly reminding the tribe of the challenges of sustenance. A small animal, not entirely cooked or properly prepared, produces a minor cough or grimace. A container tips, spilling water onto nearby berries. Even the act of sitting down on uneven ground can result in accidental nudges, rolling food, or minor spills. Each minor mishap is absorbed with gentle amusement, reinforcing attention to detail, careful handling, and the importance of slow, deliberate motion. Humor continues as a soft undertone, turning frustration into observation. By mid-meal, the rhythm of slow consumption and gentle mishaps establishes a calm cadence. Each bite is deliberate, each movement considered, and each small challenge, spilled berries, slippery moss, or a stubborn root, is met with patience, observation, and quiet laughter. Lessons accumulate subtly. Coordination, attention to detail, and awareness of both food and environment. The meal, though modest, becomes a practice in endurance, observation, and the gentle cultivation of skill. Even post-meal moments carry small lessons. Food scraps attract insects or small animals, reminding the tribe to remain vigilant and to clean carefully. Chewing and swallowing provide a quiet awareness of bodily needs, while shared amusement at minor accidents strengthens bonds. The slow, deliberate pace, punctuated by gentle mishaps and humor, fosters both practical skill and subtle social cohesion. Each member of the tribe contributes to the rhythm, learning through participation, observation, and quiet reflection on the small, often overlooked details that ensure survival. And so, by the time the midday meal concludes, the tribe is nourished, both physically and in patience, observation, and shared humor. Minor mishaps, quiet chuckles, and the deliberate rhythm of consumption have embedded lessons in coordination, care, and endurance. The day continues with a subtle sense of satisfaction, preparedness, and gentle awareness, reminding each caveman that even the simplest tasks, eating, sharing, observing, are imbued with complexity, challenge, and small moments of quiet amusement. Midday meals, in their slow, methodical, and occasionally comical way, become another ritual of survival, shaping skills, patience, and the unhurried cadence of life in the prehistoric world. With the midday meal completed and minor mishaps digested along with berries and roots, the tribe gradually moves into the slow rhythm of afternoon activities. This is a time of exploration, experimentation, and quiet curiosity. Some venture toward nearby streams, testing fishing techniques or inspecting rocks for useful tools. Others wander the forest edge, observing patterns in animal tracks, the behavior of birds, or the subtle shifts in vegetation. Each movement is deliberate, paced, and carefully observed, with the constant awareness that the world is as unpredictable as it is abundant. Exploration is never without minor mishaps. A slippery stone might send a foot skidding, a hidden root trips the unwary, or a branch snaps unexpectedly, producing a soft rustle and startled grunt. One caveman leans too far over a creek to inspect a potential fishing spot, tipping slightly and sending water spilling onto the mossy bank. Quiet laughter ripples through the group, gentle and shared, as everyone subtly adjusts, compensates, and resumes their slow, careful pace. These moments, though minor, teach balance, patience, and the art of recovering gracefully from small errors. Curiosity drives experimentation. Rocks are tested for sharpening. Sticks are tried as improvised fishing spears, and leaves are examined for potential medicinal or practical uses. Each experiment is slow and deliberate, requiring observation, trial, and often minor adjustments. One attempt to catch a small fish results in a splashing mishap, soaking both the participant and the surrounding moss. Another effort to wedge a heavy stone into a potential hammer shape produces a satisfying crack, followed by a soft cheer and a slightly bruised hand. Even failure is instructional, providing subtle guidance on how to improve technique, avoid injury, and refine timing. Tracking animals forms a major portion of afternoon activity. Footprints, droppings, broken branches, and disturbed leaves are all carefully observed and interpreted. One caveman crouches low to examine prints, gently tracing shapes with fingers and muttering quietly to himself as he pieces together the movements of unseen creatures. Each discovery, no matter how minor, is a lesson in observation, deduction, and patience. The process is slow, immersive, and occasionally punctuated by quiet humor. A startled bird flutters nearby. A rustle is mistaken for prey, and the group exchanges soft grunts of shared amusement. Collaboration remains subtle, but essential. While some track, others experiment with tools, gather materials, or scout for edible plants. Communication is measured, often nonverbal, relying on gestures, eye contact, and soft sounds to coordinate. Mistakes, such as an accidental knock of a stone or the scattering of leaves, produce minor amusement and gentle adjustments rather than frustration. Slowly, the tribe develops a rhythm of shared observation and coordinated activity, reinforcing bonds, attention to detail, and the gentle patience necessary for survival. Natural obstacles provide both challenge and amusement. Muddy patches, thorny underbrush, uneven terrain, and low-hanging branches require careful negotiation. One caveman attempts to step over a particularly large root, misjudges the distance, and stumbles, producing a soft grunt and an exaggerated flail of arms. Nearby companions stifle quiet laughter, offering subtle assistance without judgment. Each minor mishap is absorbed into the rhythm of the day, reinforcing lessons and the importance of moving deliberately in a world that offers no shortcuts. By mid-afternoon, subtle routines begin to emerge. Certain areas are recognized as safe for experimentation. Others are noted for minor hazards. Observations of animal behavior, terrain, and plant life accumulate, slowly forming a mental map of the surrounding environment. Each caveman carries small victories in memory. A successful stone split, or the recognition of a useful plant. Humor, patience, and repeated practice all combine into a deliberate, reflective rhythm that shapes skill, awareness, and subtle enjoyment of the quiet adventure. The afternoon also encourages small moments of reflection. Watching a bird alight on a branch, listening to water ripple over stones, or noting the distant movement of a predator. Each moment provides insight, calm, and a quiet appreciation for the natural world. These observations, slow and meditative, reinforce attention, patience, and the gentle awareness that survival depends as much on observation and mindfulness as it does on physical skill or raw strength. Small, humorous interruptions, a misstep, a startled animal, a minor stumble, keep the mood light, blending learning with gentle amusement. And so, as the afternoon stretches on, the tribe moves deliberately, observes carefully, and experiments cautiously. Each small adventure contributes to growing skill, awareness, and the slow accumulation of knowledge necessary for survival. Mistakes are minor, humor is subtle, and every observation, misstep, and small success embeds a quiet lesson. Afternoon adventures, in their measured, unhurried, and occasionally comical way, shape the rhythm of the day, strengthening patience, collaboration, and the gentle, enduring humor that defines caveman life. As the sun begins its slow descent, shadows lengthen across the landscape, and the day transitions from activity to reflection. The tribe encounters the subtle, often unpredictable rhythms of evening life. The forest takes on a different character. Light filters softly through the trees, highlighting small movements, rustles, and shapes that went unnoticed during the bright hours. Every sound, every flicker of motion demands attention, but not in a frantic way. Instead, observation is quiet, deliberate, and patient, blending caution with curiosity. Animals become both more cautious and more active. Small creatures forage for themselves. Predators patrol edges, and the distant calls of birds or other unseen wildlife punctuate the soft hum of evening. One caveman pauses mid-step to observe a fox slipping quietly along a low branch, while another crouches silently to watch a squirrel's awkward descent from a tree trunk. These observations, though subtle, teach attention, timing, and the gentle art of moving with the environment rather than against it. Even minor misjudgments, a foot placed slightly off balance, a brush of leaves against clothing, produce soft humor and serve as quiet lessons in caution. Interactions among the tribe take on a reflective quality, sharing observations, pointing out minor discoveries, and quietly gesturing toward interesting movements create a rhythm of communication that is both subtle and essential. One caveman notices an unusual footprint and signals another, who studies it with careful fingers, murmuring softly about the possibilities. These exchanges, measured and deliberate, reinforce collaboration, attention to detail, and the gentle patience necessary to survive in an environment that never pauses or simplifies itself for human convenience. Evening encounters are not limited to animals. The landscape itself offers unexpected challenges and surprises. A hidden puddle, softened earth, or a low branch just at shoulder height reminds the tribe to move deliberately, measure each step, and remain aware of surroundings. One misjudged stride produces a soft thud and a ripple of laughter as a companion assists the minor stumble. Subtle humor, quietly shared, diffuses tension, reinforces camaraderie, and reminds everyone that even the smallest missteps are part of learning, observation, and survival. Predator caution persists, though it is tempered by experience. Shadows lengthen and conceal shapes, requiring careful observation and occasional stillness. One caveman freezes as a distant rustle suggests movement, while another signals softly to remain quiet. The forest hums with life, each sound analyzed and catalogued, teaching timing, patience, and the subtle distinction between real danger and false alarm. Humor emerges gently, often when the perceived threat turns out to be nothing more than a harmless movement or the wind shifting leaves. These minor surprises reinforce the necessity of observation, reflection, and calm adjustment. Even minor discoveries provide instruction. A cluster of edible plants overlooked earlier, the presence of a hollow log suitable for tools, or the subtle alignment of stones for shelter, all offer insights into the environment. Each is noted quietly, stored in memory, and occasionally shared with companions through gestures, murmurs, or soft laughs. These observations accumulate, creating a slow, deliberate understanding of the surroundings that informs both immediate survival and long-term strategy. By twilight, the tribe begins to consolidate. Food scraps are gathered, tools are adjusted, and shelter is checked or reinforced. Each action is slow, deliberate, and mindful of both past successes and minor mishaps. A slight slip, a misjudged branch, or a small puddle produces gentle humor, subtle learning, and soft reminders of patience. The evening becomes a reflective rhythm, a gentle cadence of observation, adjustment, and preparation for the quiet of night. And so, evening encounters, though often understated, shape the tribe's awareness, coordination, and subtle humor. Every minor mishap contributes to a slow accumulation of skill, patience, and resilience. The soft humor of unexpected events, the careful observation of animals and environment, and the quiet camaraderie of shared experience transform the fading light into a gentle, instructive period of the day. Evening encounters, in their unhurried, meticulous, and sometimes comical way, teach calm awareness, reflection, and the enduring rhythm of life in a world that is both generous and unpredictably demanding. As darkness descends and the final rays of sunlight fade behind distant hills, the tribe enters a world transformed. Night brings quiet, shadows, and a subtle uncertainty that demands patience, awareness, and careful attention to every sound and movement. The environment that seemed manageable by day becomes unpredictable. Each rustle, distant call, or flicker of movement carrying the potential to startle, alert, or instruct. The night is not hostile exactly, but it is demanding, requiring a slow, deliberate rhythm of observation, preparation, and gentle caution. The first challenge is visibility, or rather, the lack of it. Shapes blend, outlines soften, and familiar landmarks take on unfamiliar appearances. One caveman moves carefully, stepping slowly to avoid tripping over roots, stones, or uneven ground, while another crouches near the firelight, testing the stability of a partially constructed shelter. Each movement is quiet, deliberate, and slightly exaggerated to compensate for limited sight. Even the act of holding a torch or adjusting embers requires patience, careful placement, and awareness of subtle hazards. Predator vigilance becomes paramount. Nighttime brings a shift in behavior for many creatures. Predators that were less active during the day now move with stealth, while prey animals retreat or hide, creating an altered rhythm in the environment. One caveman pauses to listen carefully, identifying a distant growl as likely harmless, while another notes a shadow moving near the tree line, adjusting their own position and signaling silently to companions. The process is slow, reflective, and quietly instructional. Patience, and the ability to respond appropriately without panic. Even minor tasks are magnified in difficulty. Fetching water, adjusting shelter, or tending to small fires requires careful attention. A misstep might send embers scattering or water spilling, creating minor frustration and quiet humor simultaneously. One caveman reaches for a container of water only to tip it slightly, prompting soft laughter and careful correction. Each minor mishap is instructive, reinforcing lessons in balance, attention, and deliberate motion, which are essential for surviving night's subtle challenges. Social coordination also shifts at night. Conversations are softer, gestures more deliberate, and shared observation becomes a subtle but essential practice. One caveman points toward the distant sound of movement. Another signals back with a hand gesture. And the group collectively adjusts positions or posture. These communications are slow, careful, and punctuated with soft amusement at minor misjudgments or accidental bumps, reinforcing both camaraderie and attentive movement. The darkness also encourages quiet reflection and observation. Listening to distant calls of nocturnal animals, observing the gentle glow of embers, and noting subtle movements in the underbrush trains both mind and body. One caveman studies the pattern of shadows cast by the fire, while another inspects the texture of moss near their feet. These observations, slow and deliberate, accumulate as essential knowledge, informing both immediate safety and long-term awareness. Humor persists quietly in minor errors, such as misjudged steps or startled reactions to harmless creatures, maintaining a gentle balance between caution and amusement. Nighttime challenges also foster improvisation. Tools and materials must be handled carefully in dim light, paths navigated thoughtfully, and shelter reinforced subtly. One caveman uses a stick to test the depth of mud. Another carefully adjusts a branch to prevent collapse. Each movement is deliberate, each decision measured, and even minor missteps are absorbed into the rhythm of practice. Quietly instructing on how to adapt to reduced visibility, subtle hazards, and unpredictable sounds. By late evening, the tribe achieves a delicate balance. Shelter is maintained, fires flicker steadily, and each member moves with cautious confidence, guided by accumulated experience and soft observation. Minor mishaps, subdued laughter, and shared awareness shape the night's rhythm. The subtle interplay of observation, patience, and quiet humor ensures that even in darkness, the tribe remains attentive, resilient, and gently amused by the unpredictability of life after sunset. And so, nighttime challenges, in their slow, careful, and quietly instructive way, become another integral part of survival. Observation, patience, coordination, and subtle humor all intertwine to create a rhythm that teaches awareness, resilience, and quiet endurance. Each step, sound, and misstep provides instruction, while gentle laughter softens the tension and reinforces camaraderie. Night, in all its muted, shadowed complexity, reminds the tribe that survival is a continuous exercise in attention, patience, and subtle adaptability, shaping skill and character in ways both practical and quietly amusing. Once the fires are reduced to gentle embers and the immediate tasks of survival are settled, the tribe enters a slower, quieter phase, midnight musings. This is a time of reflection, low voices, soft observation, and gentle curiosity. Shadows dance softly in the flickering firelight. Stars stretch endlessly across the sky, and the subtle hum of nocturnal creatures provides a rhythmic backdrop. Every sound, every faint movement invites attention, yet the pace is unhurried, deliberate, and calming, blending reflection with the enduring humor of small, shared mishaps. At this hour, thoughts drift. One caveman examines a smooth stone, turning it over slowly, noticing its weight, texture, and subtle imperfections. Another traces patterns in the moss or observes the way embers fade and shift. Even minor observations carry significance. The sound of distant water, the faint rustle of leaves, the glow of a distant star. These musings, slow and deliberate, encourage both mindfulness and subtle instruction, teaching awareness, patience, and the gentle art of noticing details that might otherwise go overlooked. Conversations are rare but thoughtful. Soft whispers describe observations, discoveries, or subtle lessons from the day. One caveman quietly points out an animal track seen earlier, while another recounts a minor mishap with berries or a misplaced step. The sharing is gentle, reflective, and often punctuated by subdued laughter. Humor persists, soft and subtle, a companion to reflection that reminds the tribe that even small errors and misadventures are part of learning, adaptation, and the quiet rhythm of life. The night also invites imagination. Shapes in shadows may become stories. Distant calls may inspire gentle speculation. And subtle patterns of wind through leaves provide endless fodder for quiet reflection. One caveman muses on the direction of a mountain shadow. Another wonders aloud about the distant flicker of light or movement. These musings, though sometimes fanciful, nurture creativity, observation, and careful thought. Even minor misinterpretations, a shadow mistaken for an animal, a ripple in water perceived as unusual, provide gentle amusement and quiet lessons in patience and discernment. Silence, in particular, is instructive. Pausing to listen to the subtle sounds of the night reveals hidden life. The soft scraping of a small animal, the distant call of nocturnal birds, the whisper of wind over rocks. Each sound, when attended to deliberately, provides information, instruction, and subtle delight. A caveman may freeze to identify a sound, followed by a quiet, shared chuckle when the threat is revealed to be nothing more than rustling leaves. These moments combine humor, caution, and observation, reinforcing awareness and patience in a gently instructive way. The night also fosters gentle introspection. Thoughts of the day's successes and failures surface slowly. The slightly overcooked root, the spilled water, the slightly awkward steps near the stream. These reflections are softened by shared experience, subtle humor, and a calm rhythm. Lessons accumulate quietly. How to move carefully, observe attentively, and adapt without haste or panic. Even small triumphs, like retrieving a stubborn root or noticing a subtle animal track, are noted with quiet satisfaction, reinforcing confidence and gentle pride. By the middle of the night, a soft cadence emerges. Firelight flickers, shadows sway, and the tribe rests in a balance of quiet activity and stillness. Some adjust sleeping positions, others tend embers, and a few simply observe the sky. Humor, subtle observation, and gentle conversation punctuate the calm, slow rhythm. These musings, repeated night after night, slowly cultivate mindfulness, patience, coordination, and quiet amusement, all of which are essential for surviving both the practical and unpredictable demands of life. And so, midnight musings, in their quiet, reflective, and subtly humorous way, shape the mind, body, and social cohesion of the tribe. Observation, patience, imagination, and shared laughter create a slow, deliberate rhythm that nurtures awareness, resilience, and subtle joy. Each minor reflection, each small amusement, and each attentive observation teaches endurance, adaptability, and the gentle art of noticing the world with both care and curiosity. The night, in its quiet mystery and muted complexity, becomes a teacher, shaping the tribe in ways that daylight alone could never achieve. As the first pale fingers of dawn stretch across the horizon, the world takes on a softer, more forgiving light. Shadows shrink, mist rises from the ground, and the forest, which seemed mysterious and sometimes intimidating at night, becomes familiar once again. The tribe awakens, slowly, stretching muscles stiff from sleep, rubbing eyes still glazed with remnants, and moving with a deliberate, unhurried rhythm. The new day brings relief, reflection, and the gentle understanding that survival is a slow, patient practice, learned incrementally through observation, humor, and careful attention. Morning routines are quiet and deliberate. Water is drawn carefully from streams. Food is gathered in small portions, and tools are adjusted for the day ahead. Even the simplest tasks carry lessons from the night. Embers are handled cautiously. Paths are retraced to avoid missteps, and minor adjustments in posture or movement ensure both efficiency and safety. A small stumble, or the misplacement of a tool produces quiet laughter, gentle teasing, and shared acknowledgement of the slow, patient learning that shapes life in these early days of humanity. Reflection naturally follows action. Cavemen silently review the events of the previous day and night, recalling both successes and minor mishaps. The spilled water, the slightly burnt root, the startled reactions to harmless animals, all these moments are noted. Not with frustration, but with gentle amusement and instruction. Each memory contributes to an evolving understanding of the world, how animals behave, how terrain can be navigated, and how subtle environmental cues signal opportunity or caution. The slow accumulations is as vital as any meal, tool, or shelter. The rising sun also brings quiet moments of contemplation, observing a distant mountain, noting the patterns of morning birds, or simply appreciating the soft, warm light fosters a calm awareness that blends the practical with the reflective. One caveman may pause to watch the mist swirl around tree trunks. Another to trace a familiar animal track, now illuminated differently by the morning light. Each observation, slow and unhurried, strengthens patience, mindfulness, and the gentle appreciation of subtle details often overlooked in the rush of daily survival. Social cohesion remains subtly reinforced. As the tribe moves together, they share brief observations, subtle advice, and soft laughter over minor past missteps. The humor is never loud or brash, but a gentle, enduring thread that ties members together, reminding them that shared experience, both successes and errors, builds trust, camaraderie, and resilience. A misplaced step, a minor fumble, or a slightly awkward adjustment of clothing may produce a quiet chuckle, a soft nudge, and a shared recognition that life is rarely perfect, yet entirely navigable with patience and awareness. By mid-morning, the tribe is engaged in slow, purposeful preparation for another day of survival. Observations from the night, lessons from previous mishaps, and the subtle humor woven throughout experiences guide movement, decision-making, and coordination. Each caveman has absorbed knowledge quietly but profoundly. How to approach water, negotiate terrain, observe animals, forage for food, and move safely after nightfall. The culmination of these slow lessons underscores a simple truth. Survival is rarely dramatic, but it is built meticulously, deliberately, and often humorously, step by careful step. And so, as the new day fully emerges, the tribe pauses briefly to reflect. The world is calm, the air crisp, and the soft rhythm of survival continues in quiet harmony. Each caveman carries memories of yesterday's minor victories, mishaps, and humorous incidents, all of which now serve as gentle instruction. Awareness, patience, observation, and subtle amusement remain constant companions, teaching lessons that extend far beyond immediate survival. The slow cadence of life, shaped by repeated experience, fosters resilience, skill, and an enduring appreciation for the unpredictable, often comical, yet always instructive world they inhabit. The story winds down gently, leaving a lingering sense of calm and quiet satisfaction. Life, though challenging, is navigable through attention, patience, and soft humor. Every small step, every observation, every subtle misstep carries a lesson. The tribe, the landscape, the shadows, and the morning light all converge into a slow, meditative understanding of existence. The day ahead is uncharted, yet approachable, guided by the slow, deliberate, and gently humorous rhythm cultivated over countless small experiences. And in that quiet understanding, you, too, can drift into reflection, imagining life as it once was, profoundly ordinary, quietly challenging, and endlessly fascinating in its small measured details.